Okay, so motivation. Again, these words intrinsic and extrinsic, hopefully you're starting to get used to understanding what that means, and I'm going to give you some sporting examples, and we'll evaluate which one's which. Let's get cracking. Some fairly short ones. Okay, what is motivation? You will have an understanding of what motivation is, but it's good to get a key term. It's your drive to succeed, the desire, right, where you want to achieve something. So a lot of people will be asked, what are your motivations? What is it you want to achieve? Or what is it you want to achieve? But actually their motivation to do so. So, if you wanted to put on more muscle and size, it's easy to say it, but actually how much is your drive, your desire to do that? How much are you willing to do to get there is the level of motivation. Okay, and there's two different types, intrinsic and extrinsic, and I'll break those down for you now. Okay, intrinsic is internal. It's the drive that comes from within the performer, the need to achieve something, the feeling of pride, self-satisfaction, general achievement. The performer is driven to achieve something for the feeling it brings them. So that's doing something not with having. You can always tell an extrinsically motivated person. They're always telling you about everything that they've done. Oh, I did this. Oh, please tell me how good I am. Whereas an intrinsically motivated person gets on with it because they get their reward and their motivation from doing it themselves. Okay, and so you might have different things. You might work quite hard at home on some things because of the feeling of pride and self-satisfaction of actually doing it. Okay, and we'll see the opposite of that, the extrinsic now. Okay, this is where your drive is to achieve a reward. Okay, so you're striving for a reward. That could be money, blah, 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 as we'll see in a second. But an outside source, you need the outside source to say well done or to give you something. Okay, so they can be tangible, certificates, trophies, medals. Okay, intangible, praise, feedback from others, applause from the crowd. You'll see some performers, but I think boxers, probably quite a lot, that really struggle with losing the intangible reward. They love the idea of the crowd singing their name. All of that is they're doing it for the crowd. Whether somebody would try as hard if the crowd wasn't there. Okay, if they don't, then they're extrinsically motivated. If they try exactly the same, whether the crowd is there or not, then they're intrinsically motivated. Okay, so intrinsic and extrinsic. Have a few examples. Okay, the idea of tangible, which you actually get, a certificate, a trophy, a medal, money, blah, blah, blah. And the intangible, which is, a pat on the back, well done from somebody else. Whereas intrinsic is all yourself, that feeling yourself. You don't need anyone to say, well done, if you're intrinsically motivated. And then we'll have a discussion in class, but generally, which one is more effective? Performers can become too reliant on extrinsic motivation. They'll only pay for the prize money, the reward, okay, and you see that with quite a lot of sports, and we'll probably, if you can think of some examples of bringing into class, would be pretty good of people that maybe only do it for the money. Okay, there was a famous Spurs left back, Benito or something like that, I can't remember him exactly, but he used to say, football's alright, but I'm basically doing it for the money. And really interesting to think of a first class, Premiership player who would say things like that. Intrinsic motivation is more likely to lead to continued effort and participation. So what we're saying is intrinsic is better in lots of ways because you're going to carry it on irrelevant of whether the reward's there, the prize money. You're doing it for yourself, for pride. Okay, you're going to be more persistent. You're going to continue it over a long period of time. Okay, the overuse of extrinsic can undermine the strength of intrinsic. So if you give too many rewards, if you give too much praise as a teacher or a coach to somebody, then it starts to take away from that kind of motivation. And I think about personally, some of the coaches I've played for, definitely they find that perfect balance between occasionally saying, oh, you played really well today, but not saying it all the time, because if you said it all the time, you would lose that. Whereas a particular reward was, a coach of mine, I'm thinking of in Bristol, the West Country, that you knew you'd had a fantastic game if he said, well done to you. Those of you which watch Bake Off, okay, there's that idea of getting the handshake off the main guy. Like if he shakes your hand, you know you've done brilliantly. If you do it all the time, then it kind of starts to undermine the strength of it. That's it. So we'll discuss it in class. Intrinsic, extrinsic, a few examples, and this idea of what is it that's motivating you in your own sport? Is it the idea of the one on the left here? I think is, for their own personal gain. They're obviously not winning a marathon there, and on the right you've got the extrinsic of money and medals. Okay, see you in class. Bye.